AI is permeating all aspects of our daily life. In film, too, the use of AI, from editing techniques to actors' performances, is increasing. Korea's first feature-length AI-produced movie is also set to premiere soon. How will that impact Korea's film industry from here on? Let's discuss the present and future of AI cinema with Jae Soh, professor and filmmaker at Seoul Institute of the Arts. So welcome back, Professor Soh.
Hello,
nice
Professor.
to be back.
So, Professor Soh, it seems like AI is being introduced at various film festivals around the world these days. And also recently we had the Reply AI Film Festival, and that was part of the Venice International Film Festival, as far as I understand. So what do you make of this trend?
Well, even domestically, we recently had the Busan Film Festival. This AI section was there, and also Busan will have an AI section. What's interesting about the Venice one, the Reply one, is that it basically, they accepted films that were completely, made by AI, the story to be generated by AI, and the winning Giselle Tong won for a movie called To Dear Me. It's kind of a self-reflective movie with a lot of sort of, I guess, dreamy sequences in it. And what's interesting also is the people that actually programmed it, like the judges were experts in both the IT field and also in film. So they had the director Rob Minkoff of Lion King be one of the sort of the judges. So I think there's a push for a lot of this AI stuff happening. I mean, domestically, we're really seeing sort of many companies starting to use AI technology. So I think to promote that, what's better than to promote it at a film festival or a big event like that? So there's many AI festivals all around the world right now. Yeah.
So we want to talk about AI films in Korea. Next month, Korea's first feature-length AI film made with AI, Run to the West, or 중간계 in Korean, is set to be released. So what is this film about, and what impact or what aspect do you expect it to bring to Korean film industry?
Yes, so I guess the English title is Run to the West, 중간계, and the director is Kang Yu-sung, who basically he's famous for the Roundup movie 범죄도시, and also he had a series on Disney called Casino. That was a really big sort of a series, and now he's come up with a story basically about it's sort of a fantastic story about basically a realm between death and the afterlife, and there are these creatures called reapers. So it's basically the location's the city of Seoul. And so a lot of fantastic sequences come out in the movie where there are a lot of chases between creatures, from, I guess, devils to all kinds of evil that's sort of chasing these people. And one of the interesting things about it is that it stars Byun Yo-han and many other stars, but he used AI technology in a lot of the special effects. So I can imagine, I watched the trailer, of course, the movie's coming out on the 15th, but it seemed like there's a lot of sort of really surrealistic, far kind of interesting sort of CG special effects happening in the movie about that. And I think what's interesting is that, even though recently, like, I visited CG, places like Dexter Studio, and I've asked them like what they're doing with AI, and they're still in the research phase of it. It's still used basically to maybe do pre-visualization. So before you actually shoot the movie, you might use AI technology to kind of like see what it's going to look like. But I'm sure even, this movie, even though maybe AI generated a lot of the images, the actual like finessing of it and using VFX is probably still done by hand. But we'll see. It's something I'm looking forward to see, like how they used it in this movie as well.
Right. We just saw some of the footage of the trailer, and just from that, I didn't really know whether it's AI or not. And you just mentioned CG, in fact, Professor Soh. People might be wondering, what's so special about having like an hour-long film that's like featured with AI? What's the difference between that and films that have some very realistic computer graphics?
Well, not much, but the thing is, one is generated by a machine, the other by humans. But I don't think we're at the stage where you can automate that situation. I mean, I've used Runway and Midjourney. These are kind of software that you use to make, video with, and it's really frustrating to create something you really want. Like, for example, I would say something like, create this woman warrior with a lot of weapons. So it'll come up with a fantastic idea, but I only like maybe 10% of it. So I would say keep the 10%, and I want to change all this. And then it starts changing in a different way, to the point where I've spent so much time trying to futz with this machine that I'm thinking I should have just done it by hand to save time. But I'm sure what they're using in the industry right now is more so towards audio. You know, there are a lot of movies that are coming out where, you know, you need to kind of change an accent that somebody's doing and you want to match the lips to something. And I think AI is something that can use to sort of speed up the process, because a lot of these movies have a release date and they're running against this kind of deadline where everything is kind of coming together at the last moment. And I think AI really helps to keep on deadline. But as of yet, I don't think you can just tell AI, hey, create this for me, and it's going to do it.
Interesting. Well, now let's go over to Hollywood. Last year, we had the film Here starring Tom Hanks, and that really drew attention back then because also featured the much of AI technology. You could see how Tom Hanks from his early years, from his youth to like when he becomes old, all of that was through AI technology. So what are some other examples that we're seeing overseas right now?
Well, Here was an interesting example because it's based on a graphic novel by Richard Maguire. And basically it's a story about like one spot on the earth, like millions of years, and it happens to come to characters that Tom Hanks and I think the director, Robert Zemeckis, is somebody who's always embraced technology. If you see his filmography, he's done everything from motion capture stuff on animation to he uses a lot of CG technology. So I think he wanted to do this thing. And what's interesting about the way this was made was also, you know, the de-aging. So you have Tom Hanks in 20 years, so you take out all the sort of like the aging things that the actor has. But what's interesting is they did it in real time. So it's not like in post where so the AI sort of driven sort of CG technology is that the camera captures the image and instantly changes it to a younger form. So you're kind of shooting in that way. But as of now, I think Here it's definitely a benchmark. I think some people have said, sort of criticized the movie and said, you know, what is this? Is this like a big promotion movie for AI? But I think at the same time, you know, as I mentioned before, you know, there's movies like The Brutalist or Emilia Perez that won the Oscar, and they used AI technology, but mostly not towards the visuals, it's the audio. So for Emilia Perez, it was like basically some of the actors, I guess, they weren't able to hit the notes. So AI kind of went in and changed their singing. You know, so I guess it's like an automated auto-tune type of situation. And also for Brutalist, you had Adrian Brody, who won the Oscar for Best Actor, and he spoke Hungarian. Apparently he's able to speak some of it, but they used AI to sort of enhance his lips and sort of the sound of what he's making. So there's a lot of controversy, like, did he really deserve the Oscar for that for acting, or is it AI that really helped to enhance his performance?
Right. I remember us talking about that before on our show as well. Now coming back to Korea again, recently a domestic AI film contest utilizing actors' faces and voices was held. Last year it was It's Me Moon-hee featuring veteran actress Na Moon-hee, and this year it's Me Go-jun starring actor Go-jun. So what do you think of this attempt and actors, you know, allowing their own IP to be used for these AI films?
This is a company called MCA, and I think they get a lot of money from KT. So it's KT's like really driving this. And what's interesting about this is the Na Moon-hee was like, basically the actor didn't really come out to act in the movies. It was like they scanned her face and her body, and they had her play all different kinds of characters. So it's the second version of this, but I think what's kind of interesting about this one is it's a competition. So they're letting anybody use Go-jun's face and voice to make a story. So you can use those elements that the AI have provided, and then you can kind of come up with your own story. So it could be a horror movie that Go-jun is in, and also like a sci-fi movie or a drama. So basically the actor himself is given the IP permission, or, you know, his rights to be used. But I think Go-jun's already kind of an interesting guy. He has a YouTube channel. He's very media savvy, and I understand that he went to film school, so I can understand why he'd be interested in this technology. But it's really interesting because you have a celebrity that has allowed his likeness to be used in a content that basically it's a competition. So if this really succeeds, is there going to be a certain point where an actor could act in 10 movies simultaneously, because you have AI sort of doing all the work for you.
That would be very interesting for the actors to watch themselves in those movies. Well,
Right.
is that actually me or? But anyways, now let's talk about some laws here. The AI Basic Act is expected to take effect next year. So that's going to have an emphasis placed on promotion rather than regulation. So what do you think will this act, what kind of impact will this have on the film industry?
Well, a lot of people believe regulation is really necessary for AI because there's also copyright and ownership, you know. But at the same time, Korea's finally gotten around to doing it. It's sort of the wild, wild west right now because there are no regulations. In Hollywood, you know, a couple of years back, they had sort of all this, you know, they had a strike, the writer's strike, and a lot of the terminology was about use of AI. You know, for example, in Hollywood, if an AI created a novel, AI cannot use the novel to make a screenplay. It has to be human. They have these laws for that. So this law, which is going to take place in 26 next year, there's a sort of the clause that everybody's talking about is this thing called high-risk AI and generative AI labels on things. So basically, if you have a small, like, two-person operation and you're making AI content, they're kind of forcing you to sort of watermark and make sure that what you did is original. And the disadvantage to that is, like, when you start to do that, like the bigger corporations like Naver or Samsung, they have a definite advantage over small entrepreneurs. So I think there's always been this sort of, you know, how much regulation do you do that will enhance the industry instead of, you know, stopping it? So we have this sort of thing happen, but I think what this regulation, it's very loose, you know, and I think it just will provide a framework to start out with. And I think if a lot of, you know, content providers are like, this is getting in the way, I think they will have to change or amend the actual, you know, rule itself. Yeah.
Right. And also with AI films, there's always controversy surrounding ethical and copyright issues as well. So what do you see is the biggest challenge AI films will face in the future?
Well, you know, one thing's interesting is, like, you know, recently I think at the Kulture Film Festival, there's a movie by a Polish director who fed AI Werner Herzog movies. And then he said, write me a Werner Herzog screenplay. And then he made the movie based on that screenplay. So now the big question is, I'm sure he got permission from Werner Herzog, but let's say Werner Herzog didn't give permission. Basically, when you start to teach these AI tools, like, you know, I'm going to teach it everything that's available in terms of content, and you're not paying for that content, now that's a problem. Because whether you trained it and it's now making content that's similar to other artists or authors that have done stuff, you have to ask that question, like, okay, so, you know, you use this content, did you pay for it? And a lot of times they have not. For example, OpenAI openly admits that they've paid for some content, but they have not paid for everything, because there's too much. So there has to be sort of regulation, and I think that's the controversy, is basically all of this stuff is, you know, really great new toys that we can use, but would it be good to use that in harm of using content that somebody else made, and you trained AI to sort of, by feeding it all this stuff, and you haven't really paid for that? That's definitely a sort of a problem that we could see happening in the future. And it affects all content creators in that way too.
I guess really the balance between promotion and regulation is the biggest task ahead. Well, thank you very much, Professor Soh. That's all the time we have today. See you next time and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Bella, as always. We're going to see you back here next week.
Yes, I'll see you back next week.